Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of With Love, Solé. And I want to talk today about astrology being kind of a blueprint for what's already naturally happening in our realities. And, I grew up with astrology. I'm pretty well versed on astrology. I'm definitely not like an astrology chick. I wouldn't say you don't really see me talking about it too much. Because I think for me and the frame that I use it these days, it's more of kind of a roadmap or a tool, a way of confirming or affirming my reality. But it's not something that is the be all end all for me personally. And I think a lot of people get into astrology and it's every personality trait they attribute to their placements and what have you. And, that's fine for them. For me personally, I don't adhere to one thing at all, really. Ultimately, my kind of spiritual toolkit is like filled with many different philosophies and theologies and ways of looking at things. And it is one of them. But I wanted to use it as an example today because I think it holds really important keys and codes to the evolution of humanity. And the thing about astrology is, if you pay attention to it at all, it's ever changing, right? I mean, literally, the moon is in a different phase every single day, and the planets are ever shifting and moving and finding new, alignments that are creating certain experiences on the planet, if you will. And so if you follow astrology, the notion of it is that change is ever present and that you may be feeling X, Y, and Z because of this configuration in the sky, and it's creating this type of collective experience for humanity in this way, or based on your placements, you're going to be feeling this, that, or the third. And I mean, I believe in some of that. Again, I don't like take that as like, it's Mercury retrograde, everything, like don't sign contracts, don't do all, I don't let it like dictate my reality. I just take it as like advice to heed. And what I think it's doing though is giving us that beautiful permission to continuously change. And that it kind of provides the structure in that things are shifting, things are changing. You might feel this change, you might feel it in this certain way or this certain way, and that's okay, right? And I think if nothing else, I really appreciate that about astrology because the true nature of reality is that things are ever shifting and ever changing, and we may feel it in this way or this way, or it may present itself in a particular way to offer any given lesson to us, and that we need to level us up in some given circumstance or situation. And I think that's important because the kind of outdated and kind of failing system programming of the human experience is to like seek comforts, the white picket fence and the nice house and the family, and you can kind of level out and even out and seek comfort. You're going to, do this for 65 years. And that to me is outdated. It's goes against actually the true nature of reality and the true nature of not only the stars and the cosmos, but how we exist and what really fuels the spirit and the soul and what the spirit and the soul is here to do. Now, if you have a family and you have kids, I'm sure they're your little consolation on the ground that's ever shifting, ever changing, day to day. And I think that's also purposeful, just like astrology, children as you raise them and you have to figure out how to keep this little small human alive and navigate their daily shifts and momentary changes and emotional fluctuations. It's like very similar to what I'm talking about. And again, I think that's a part of the design because I think we're not meant to flatline. We're not meant to flatline. We're not meant to find the thing and ease into the thing and then just every single day is monotonous and repetitive and structured. It's the exact same thing. We get up, we do the same thing, we go to sleep, we do, like day in and day out. I think that that is a suffocation to the evolution of the soul. And I obviously believe that we're here primarily for the evolution of the soul, which is the evolution of kind of say we have an individual soul and then the evolution of the soul of humanity and then the evolution of humanity altogether. And, if you go into Joe Dispenza's work at all, he talks almost, if you watch any of his podcasts, on almost every single podcast, he'll say we need to stop becoming familiar with who we think we are. Because as soon as you're familiar with who you think you are and you've landed there, you suffocate the potentiality that every moment holds to kind of propel you into moreness. And that's why, even in the quantum mechanics of things, say like, you know, take a different route home, or at least switch up, the monotony of your day in some way, shape, or form. Even in a yoga practice, they say step back with the opposite foot, right? Like switch up your routines as often as you can, because the shift and the change and the kind of oddity of it not being the monotony actually builds new neural pathways in the brain, and the neural pathways in the brain allow you to see reality clearer and from a kind of a higher vision, if you will. And I think that's important. I mean, I know that's important. I think that if you truly desire to fulfill your soul's desires and to maximize your spiritual gifts and to explore the true nature of your own reality, it takes a lot of kind of uncomfortable things. You have to be very comfortable with discomfort. In fact, you almost have to kind of seek, you know, uncomfortability more than you seek comfort. And there's going to be a little bit of both, right? Because you can't just always be ungrounded and lost in like the winds of discomfort. And that too is not like helpful necessarily. And uncomfortability is a necessary component of the evolution of humanity and the evolution of the soul. And comfortability can sometimes lock you into who you think you are, or the kind of monotony and systematic way of experiencing yourself and the world, and stuck in the framework of like how you see the world and how you see yourself. And, Joe talks about all the time, like, the placebo effect, for example, that, a small commitment every single day by taking even, say, a sugar pill, to say this sugar pill is going to help me call in my husband, and you take that every day, you're informing yourself that you're creating a reality where your husband is coming. And sometimes we need an external source or force to do that. And that's literally what studies have shown the sugar pill is, the placebo effect, that as long as you have told yourself this thing is working in this way, it'll work in that way. And it's easier to like have the routine of like taking the thing and that be what you decide is absolutely going to work for you, than sitting down in meditation and deciding I'm just going to quantum timeline jump into the timeline where my husband is here. And both work. I mean, that's what is happening. That's what's happening in the placebo effect. You have literally convinced yourself and told your internal programming that this is what is happening by taking this thing, and therefore it's working. And lo and behold, in walks your husband, right? And it's the slow process away and the slow journey away from who you've been or how you existed before without a husband. And what will happen is it'll invite you into the slow journey into what it would look like to have a husband. And, that's why, we have our spiritual tools. Here I have my like supplement line next to me. We have aura sprays and stuff like that, which the aura sprays ultimately are exactly what I'm describing. I mean, the energetics of the essential oils, do create a certain vibration that attracts in, say, abundance, if you will. And it is the spraying and the action of it that kind of builds into your spiritual practice the intentionality of calling in abundance. And I'm going to use this thing to do it. And it's helpful. All tools, anything that you decide is the thing that's going to help you get the thing that you want, is helpful. And it is breaking up the monotony of just being in the kind of do like robotic way of existing as yourself. And that's Joe's framework in a massive way. And I really highly recommend looking into Joe Dispenza's work if what I'm talking about interests you, because it's like his whole jam is like what I'm describing basically, right? It's all about the timeline jump from your current reality to your desired reality, and that it can happen as quickly as you allow yourself to forget the old version of you that existed without it and to exist as the version of you that has it. And, I kind of talked about this in my last video about like gratitude and these other practices being a powerful way of calling in your desired outcome, because you telling your system, thank you for me having this thing, is going to create the reality wherein you have the thing and you're thankful for it. And that's his whole work. His whole work is about the quantum mechanics of existing, shifting the framework of how you exist from this version to the new version where you are healed, where you have your abundance, where you have your life partner, where you have your family, whatever you desire. And he has studies after studies after studies and all the like backing to prove that this is true. I mean, he's healed miraculously people in his week-long courses, in-person courses that he does, where they come in and they're suspicious and they have this ailment that doctors is not healable, and they leave healed. And it's literally, been documented in his work. And all he does is shift their mind frame around it, shift them out of the vibration of sickness and into the new experience of self where that experience is healed, and delete, basically. It's like deleting from their subconscious programming and personality programming and ways that they exist in the world, that old thing that they don't want. You're deleting that and recreating a self where that doesn't exist. And, I like his work because it's scientifically backed. And I know that this is absolutely real and 100% possible. In fact, it is the framework of quantum physics, which is the newer, I guess, arm of science that a lot of scientists kind of still like laugh at because they're studying the space between, which has never been done before. And as with all new things, those who exist now like to laugh at it because it doesn't really work in their framework yet, because quantum physics challenges a lot of the other sciences that are a lot more black and white, whereas quantum physics is literally describing and studying the quantum, which is, there's not the same kind of black and white rules in the quantum as there is in the linear reality. But all this to say, we're doing this all of the time, right? We are energetic beings and we are designed to vibrate higher. I really sincerely believe that the natural order of our realities is to invite us to vibrate higher. And if you're not committed to that, if you're not all the way in on letting things go and releasing and reprogramming yourself so that you can continuously vibrate higher, that's when life comes in with these like traumatic monumental events to kick our butt out of the framework where we weren't choosing to vibrate higher and into the place where we're now going to have a lot more space to vibrate higher. And if you don't wait for those kinds of experiences to happen and kick your butt, then you can do it a lot more seamlessly and without them. And you're always vibrating higher every single day. A lot of times when you feel a little tired or lethargic or just over life or whatever, and that happens to all of us, trust me. But what it is, it's like your life being like, there's so much more, but you've gotten comfortable. You've gotten comfortable with who you think you are. You've gotten comfortable with the world as you think it is. You've gotten comfortable with your day-to-day routine and doing the same things and eating the same things and having the same conversations and watching the same shows and the same. And the whole nature of life has changed. So you're really actively working against the nature of reality by clinging to sameness because you want to be comfortable. And we're really not here to be comfortable. Again, there's structure that can be built in where it still feels like I feel relatively comfortable and I don't seek comfort. And I'm willing to shift or change at the drop of a dime based on what I feel like my life is asking for from me. And I'm always fine-tuning myself to create more space for me personally to vibrate higher. And I really feel like there's a coding there for so many that shifts you into the leading edge of yourself, where you know and feel and just can absolutely are absorbed in your own evolution. And there's such a spiritual satisfaction to that softens this like worldly desire, need to like reach externally for what you think that you want. That's going to give you that feeling of like aliveness or whatever you think you're looking for. The feeling of aliveness comes from becoming yourself, taking at next level, shifting that programming, releasing that thing. And that's where I come in back to kind of astrology and the idea of letting it all just be constantly changing. The framework of the skies are literally constantly changing to support this path. And it can be nice to follow along for that reason, just to say, okay, well, now, this planet is conjunct this planet. So that means this thing is going to happen. It's like, what's going to happen, And it keeps you kind of on the edge of your proverbial seat in, vibrating higher and evolving as a soul. And it keeps you kind of connected to the fact that that's always possible, that literally our skies are designed and moving around our own possibility and the shifting and changing of who we are and the becoming of who we're here to be. So I wanted to invite that conversation in. I think it is a good thing for us to sit with and consider in our own realities and notice the ways that we squander our own evolution, the ways that we seek comfort, the ways that we cling to sameness. And can you start to let go? If you've ever sat in, and I personally don't even want to sit in one ever again. I've done enough, led enough of these, but like a moon circle or a ceremonial circle, they're fantastic. Do not let me act like it's just that I've done so many in the course of my career that I feel complete. And every time, if I were to sit again tomorrow, I would get so much benefit out of it. It's just me being silly. But one of the main things, especially on the full moon circles, they'll say is to let go of what's not serving you. Let go of what's not serving you. I probably heard that term and that phrase more than any phrase ever in my entire life, if I'm being very honest, because my mom was also in astrology. And it's like the number one repeated phrase in astrology is to let go of what's not serving you. And it's not wrong. It's not wrong. And let us all take every opportunity we can possibly take to let go of what's not serving us. Because the true nature of the spiritual path, so much of the spiritual path is really less about learning and more about unlearning and more about releasing and more about fine tuning ourselves to understand, is this who I really am, or has the world made me this way? Is this who I really am, or has my relationship to my parents, say, or my family created me to be this way, trained me to be this way, when in fact that goes against who I really am. And so you're checking under every rock of how you exist and how you present to the world so that you're continuously reprogramming yourself and opening up more spaciousness for you to evolve as a being and to be not so attached to the frame that you exist in, so that the frame that you exist in can widen and shift and change and evolve over time. Just as we do, I mean, physically, we literally develop over time. Why would we not also do the same spiritually and psychologically and emotionally and otherwise? And there seems to be a clear trend to what that would mean. If you just feel better and better over time, I'd say that's a pretty good sign that you're heading in the right direction. If you feel like every day is just getting worse and worse, maybe there's something to look at. So look at it, and especially in the seasons where you just feel off, you're funky, like your energy's off, you can't quite get your footing, like things aren't feeling like, and trust me, I still have these seasons. I'm not acting like I'm judging you for having them. It's very human to have it because it is your system saying you're missing something. You're missing something. And then you have to have the radical accountability to look at what that something is. Because say it's a relationship that you love so much and you cherish and it's not working for you anymore. That doesn't mean it needs to go away completely. It may mean it needs to change pretty radically. Or maybe the job that you've worked for 10 years and it's much easier to just stay in the job and get your promotions. And even though your soul is like totally squandered by, I can't stand going to this job another day, but your like monotonous human reality decides it's just easier to keep it than it is to try to find a new one. Any number of things it could be. Any number of things it could be. I mean, for me, I'll call myself out. I know something I actively work on is literally just being more in public. I'm such a homebody and I work from home and I love, 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 love being home. And, my exploration of myself happens in the corner of my couch. And a lot of times I can feel when my energy is not like at its level that I want it to be. It's because literally have not left my house in 3 days. And I feel like on the one hand, happy about it. It feels so comfortable to me. And my life force energy is like, girl, you got to get out. You got to like go do the thing and just at least sit at a coffee shop. And I listen to that and I heed that. And I set intentions around that. So when I do go to the coffee shop, at least it's symbolic or meaningful in me in some way. So it feels like a part of the plan. And, but otherwise, I could also work on being more spontaneous. And I think that's why I travel so much, because think about traveling. It like uproots you from your like day-to-day monotony and puts you in a totally new place where there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncontrollables and mystical, magical experiences. And that's why traveling really it's a great like tool for what I'm describing, just like astrology, just like the other things that uproot you from the familiarity of your life as it is and puts you into a new, slightly uncomfortable frame that you can work with and sit into and makes you just feel braver and more courageous to take on life as it is. So That's what I got. I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know your thoughts. I do highly recommend Joe Dispenza. He's a master teacher for me, and for me, I love the being able to kind of speak scientifically about the quantum reality, and then how that bridges into spirituality and how that evolves the soul. And I think that's all that kind of conversation is starting to come together. And he's definitely a master teacher for humanity in that way. So kudos to him. And yeah, that's what I got. Thanks for watching, you guys. See you next week.